The Phoenix Suns are currently doing background work for Andrew Wiggins. Does that mean that a trade is imminent? Should the Miami Heat entertain trading for Ja Morant after the Desmond Bane trade? Let's talk about it, Heat Nation. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe as we push for 7,000 subscribers. More importantly, click that notification bell so you can get all the updates. Now that we got that out the way, hit the intro.
That is enough said.
Happy Monday, Miami Heat Nation. Your boy Ernest here, back with another Miami Heat Talk video. You guys are incredible. I got a bunch of happy Father's Day messages yesterday, you guys. Y'all the real MVP. Really appreciate y'all. Hope everyone had an amazing Father's Day yesterday. For those of you that are a dad, father figure, stepdad, adopted father, whoever, as long as you're taking care of someone, being the head of the household and staying positive, kudos to you. Happy Father's Day. Now together, let's go on another Miami Heat Talk adventure, because as we know, we are currently on Kevin Durant watch. But before I get to that topic, there is one thing I want to quickly mention. I mentioned in the beginning of this episode about the possibility of the Miami Heat going after Ja Morant. Reason why I mentioned that, as we noticed, the Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies recently did a trade, sending Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 future first-round draft picks and 1 pick swap. Damn. But hey, Orlando got their guy. This is their team. Orlando's going to look nice moving forward. They're definitely going to be a contending team in the Eastern Conference. But this also started giving questions. Does that mean that the Memphis Grizzlies are maybe looking to move Ja Morant or Jaren Jackson? And the reason why is because we noticed, Ja Morant rumors started coming up about a month ago about a potential trade. We know Ja's been over there kind of being a knucklehead with the gun references, the IG stuff, the lack of maturity. Also, you have his dad who comes to a lot of games. And as you can tell, these are guys that like to start problems at certain times. And I know a lot of people feel like that Ja Morant won't fit the Miami Heat culture, but let's be real. A few years ago, he was deemed a potential future of the NBA. But it was also reported by Brian Windhorst earlier today on Get Up in ESPN that the Memphis Grizzlies aren't really looking to move Ja Morant or Jaren Jackson. They made this Desmond Bane trade to give them cap flexibility to extend Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson. And I don't really see Memphis making that trade because look, they traded Desmond Bane, but they got a lot of first-round draft picks. They also got Orlando's 2025 draft pick. You got KCP, who's a former NBA champion. Cole Anthony is good himself. You're retooling that team. So I don't see them rebuilding, and I don't see them moving Ja. And even if they were moving Ja, I don't think the Heat would entertain that idea. So moving on to Kevin Durant. Because like I reported in the beginning of this episode, it was reported today by Hoops Hype that the Phoenix Suns have done background work on Andrew Wiggins, potentially meaning that they're really looking at the Miami Heat's offer to pull that submit button. And I've mentioned it a lot in the past, you guys, a potential trade package of Andrew Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, whose contract is partially expiring. I'd prefer they take Terry Rozier rather than Duncan Robinson. I'd love to keep Duncan on this team, but I understand that that Phoenix is trying to get under the second apron, and having Duncan's contract helps them with that. You can also include Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic, maybe even the 20th pick and a future first-round pick swap. I think that's a lot, but there's an open market for Kevin Durant. There's going to be other teams that are looking to get him. Now, it was reported today by Hoops Hype, and I'm going to read this quote. The Phoenix Suns have done background work on the Miami Heat's forward Andrew Wiggins. League sources told Hoops Hypes. Wiggins is owed $28.22 million this upcoming season and would likely be a part of any Miami Heat trade package. A key factor in Miami's chances of landing Durant could hinge on whether the franchise is willing to part with 21-year-old big man Kel'el Ware, who's of interest to Phoenix. Now, I've mentioned this in the past, you guys. I really don't want to trade Kel'el Ware. I don't he's showing that he can give you a different type of he's a different type of player, a 7'3" and D type of player. He plays perfect alongside Bam Adebayo. You send Kel'el Ware to Phoenix for Kevin Durant. You have to put Bam Adebayo back in the center position, maybe put Kevin Durant at the 4. Now, would that work? Maybe. But I would like to keep Kel'el Ware so we can have a starting front court of Kel'el Ware, Bam Adebayo, and Kevin Durant. Now, I'm not saying that Kel'el Ware is a deal breaker for this trade. You got to do what you got to do to get it done. And at the end of the day, we can't think the same mindset that we had with Damian Lillard in 2023. Because one of the main reasons why the Heat were not able to get Damian Lillard is because they weren't willing to include all of their assets simply because they felt like there wasn't a market for Damian Lillard. And the moment that he stepped back and instead of doing his Miami or bust and said that he was open to going to Milwaukee or Brooklyn, bam, the trade was made because the offer was better. So the Miami Heat need to decide, what do they want to do? If you want to stay as a play-in team and hover in the middle of the conference, run it back for one more year. And then you'll have a bunch of cap flexibility in 2026. That's an option. Or get your guy. Get Kevin Durant, put him with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, and see what this team can do for 2026. You'll have your core. I don't want to give up Kel'el Ware, you guys. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do to make the trade. So I want to hear from you guys. If the deal breaker was Kel'el Ware, if Phoenix says you can't do the trade unless Kel'el Ware is added, would you do it? I'm really interested. Now, something else I want to talk about, you guys. It was reported yesterday that Kevin Durant's preferred choices were the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Houston Rockets. But it was reported yesterday by Mark Stein that the Phoenix Suns are not promising to send Kevin Durant to San Antonio, Houston, or Miami. Mark Stein reported, sources say that the Suns, meanwhile, are not promising to send Kevin Durant to any of those destinations. They are open to a mutually beneficial trade to the Spurs, Rockets, or Heat if they end up liking the return. But it appears that Phoenix is prepared to take the best deal it can after surrendering a staggering haul to acquire Durant from Brooklyn in the first place in February of 2023. This is kind of like Kawhi Leonard in 2018. He told the San Antonio Spurs he wanted to go to one of the LA teams, either the Lakers or the Clippers, and they sent him to Toronto as a one-year rental. Don't think for a second that Toronto, Minnesota, some of these other teams can come up from the woodwork and just take Durant for 1 year. So if you ask me, you guys, would I be angry if the Miami Heat added Kel'el Ware in a Kevin Durant trade? For a minute or two, but then I'd be like, okay, let's get it done. Now, here's the thing. If you're including Kel'el Ware in this trade package, no Nikola Jovic, no Jaime Jaquez, and no first-round draft pick. Maybe a future first-round draft pick, but we need to keep our 20th pick to go get another center. Because the reason why you have Kel'el Ware is to play him in the front court with Bam Adebayo. It worked last year. You take Kel'el Ware off this team, now you got to put Bam back at the center. So you need to get an upgrade in the center position, whether it's in the draft or whether it's your mid-level exception. So Heat Nation, what I'm trying to say is, as much as we love Kel'el Ware and we want him to stay on this team, look at the Jaime Jaquez situation. We didn't want to include him for a trade for Damian Lillard, and look at him now going through sophomore struggles. Even though I don't think that's going to be Kel'el Ware, it's still something to think about. So Heat Nation, I want to hear from you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Do you want to go after Kevin Durant if if Kel'el Ware is included, or would you nix that deal? Thank you guys so much for the continued support. And until next time, your boy Ernest out. And that is enough said.